This is one of my blood pressure monitors. This one is digital, and you put the cuff on your arm, your upper arm. There are many videos on how to use these. And then with this one, you just press the button. I don't think it'll inflate. But when the cuff is on your arm, it then inflates. And when it stops inflating, it gives you your blood pressure reading. I'm just going to see if it stops when it's not on somebody's arm. Usually it wouldn't go any higher than 200. And if it ever goes to 300, pull the plug out. If it goes above 200 and you have it on, pull the plug out. It's going ahead and doing a reading, even though it's not on me. I had to answer the phone. So now what I'm going to do is disconnect it, and you can just pull the it'll give you a 0, an error. But if it ever feels like it's getting too tight, just do that and pull it out. It'll deflate if you can't get it off your arm fast enough. But anyway, these are, when I had to look into this, these are almost secondary to a manual blood pressure cuff and a stethoscope. And I have a Littmann stethoscope. I have a few stethoscopes. I eventually ended up buying a Littmann, which is about $55. I have the lightweight SE3, I think is what it's called. And it's your entry-level Littmann stethoscope. And it goes with a manual blood pressure cuff, where you actually listen for the sound of your heartbeat. And it's a little bit of a different process. These are the most common. But I went by what the nurses do in the office when I go to a doctor, and they use a manual blood pressure cuff and a stethoscope. So that's what I have that I use most often. But for this treadle test, what I'll be doing is taking my blood pressure with this, and then treadling for 15 minutes and seeing if it lowers my blood pressure. Now, I'm not a doctor or a medical professional. Any of these are suggestions that if you have high blood pressure, maybe treadling can help you too. Maybe this is why you treadle, if you already treadle and have high blood pressure. As far as the PAD goes, what I may be looking at is which is the priority here. Which is worse? Difficulty walking for any real distance or having high blood pressure. And it may be that I find if I'm walking a mile a day anyway, which I kind of am finding that just in my regular stuff, I'm walking a mile a day. But if treadling then lowers my blood pressure, I think the blood pressure would be more of a health priority over walking with or without pain. So that's what I'm doing. It's all a suggestion. It also is productive. I can make things. I have an old farm type chair that I'm gonna, it's been on the porch. I'll bring it back in the house and clean it up. Because if I can sit here and use both feet to treadle and lower my blood pressure, that would probably be the best thing for me to be doing right now. So when I actually go to start treadling, I'll take my blood pressure, we'll see what the reading is, and then I'll take my blood pressure after 15 minutes of treadling, and we'll see what happens. It's all a suggestion, not proven, obviously, but something you might want to try if you have high blood pressure. Okay, this is going to be my blood pressure before I start treadling in any way. Can read it really well. 141/71 with a pulse of 84. So that's lower than it has been for me, but that's a little higher than I would like it. But let's use this as my starting blood pressure. So now what I'm going to do is set the timer for, I'm probably going to set it for 15 minutes. And treadle for 15 minutes. I'm not going to have you watch me treadling for the 15 minutes, but I'll set it for 15 minutes. I'll treadle and then take my blood pressure again. I am going to record a little bit of the treadling that I'm going to do right now, simply because when you use 2 feet, I brought a chair in that was outside, and when you use 2 feet to treadle instead of 1, the way I normally do it, the cadence of treadling is just a little bit different. Now this treadle is up on wheels, and the one problem I was having was that the treadle was moving, so I'm going to have to put some bricks or something behind it. But I'll just show you how it's a little bit different when you treadle with 2 feet as opposed to the normal way I've been doing it, which is with 1 foot. I'm going to stop there before I get to the end and show you what I was doing. It's actually faster and a little bit more relaxed, and if I can push the treadle forward, I'll show you what I was doing. Left foot and then right foot. Okay, the alarm just went off, and just before it did, the needle became unthreaded. So I'm going to stop there because that was 15 minutes. I'm going to take my blood pressure again, but this is kind of considered during the treadling, because I would probably try to do 2 15-minute sessions at once. So this is just going to give me an idea of after 15 minutes of treadling, what does my blood pressure look like. So here's the... Now remember, these automatic cuffs, see how it's going higher? Sometimes they're just a little bit off. When you use a stethoscope and the manual one, you have to listen for when you hear your heartbeat, and then when it ends, and then when it starts again, as you let air out of a little thing. So now, this is a problem. 171/86. This is a problem. So now I'm going to take a break. I'm going to think about whether or not I would have probably a heightened blood pressure by running, walking, riding the bike. It hasn't gone up to 171 in a while. And what my plan was anyway was to now wait about 15 minutes and take it again without doing anything. Normally they tell you to rest for 5 minutes before you take your blood pressure. So this would be during, technically, treadling. It goes up to 171/86, which is roughly 30 points. And it may do that with all exercise, I don't know. So like I said, now I'm going to wait. I'm going to give it 15 minutes and take it again without doing anything. Okay, there's about 4 minutes left on the timer, but I'm going to go ahead and take my blood pressure again now. Now, even if this ends up high after resting for about 15 minutes, I think this is a valid test that people should do for themselves with treadling, and I'll tell you why. I've treadled for many years, and I prefer, in many ways, when I'm making a quilt, to use a treadle machine. And in my mind, I had always thought there were benefits from treadling, and in fact had brought it up with all my doctors long before my leg failed, and none of them had done any experimenting with treadling. Now, coincidentally, on CNN, I just read an article on how doctors have found in some study that isometric exercise can lower blood pressure. So, which is good and bad. This is more actually active, I think, than isometric. So I'm going to go ahead and take my blood pressure again, see if it's come down. I'm then going to think about how does this affect my treadling? Is it a positive or a negative? And I'm also going to, I haven't taken my walk yet today. So this will be the third and final reading of the blood pressure now, but for my own use, I'm then going to go take one of my walks. And when I come back, I'm going to see if my blood pressure is also elevated after a walk. I know it's gone up after I ride a bike, and normally it probably would because you're exercising. And with PAD, when your blood flow slows down, your blood pressure would probably go up because your heart needs to work harder. Now, just before my 15 minutes of treadling were up, my left leg started to feel weak. So this is all normal. And it's a way to use what some would say is a more sedentary exercise because you're sitting while you're treadling. So there's the alarm with 15 minutes of resting. And the three readings together, the first one being 141/71, and then after the treadling, 171, and see now I'm back down to 157 from 171. So the 171 spiked up because I was using my legs. So this would be a more long-term, like a personal study in a way, to keep track of your blood pressure after you do treadling sessions. 87. So my pulse is down. My diastolic, which is the lower number, stayed the same, but the systolic, which is the upper number, it went from 141 to 171 while treadling, and then down to 157. So whether or not there's a long-term overall benefit, I won't know unless I do these kind of readings all the time. Now, I'm actually writing these down on a chart. Sometimes they give you blank charts that come with the blood pressure monitors. This has a memory button. Now this will go into memory. And the advantage to these, over a chart, you can take this right to the doctor's office with you and hit the memory button, and the doctor can see what your readings have been. So it's really inconclusive right now whether or not treadling benefits lowering my blood pressure, but I bet if I did a similar test over a week, I would find out that it's better than doing nothing. Does it equal walking? I don't know. I'm going to go for a walk and then take my blood pressure. And if when I come back it's like 170 something, I'll say, well, then this is still, treadling is just as what do you call that? It's using my body, pushing my body a little bit beyond what is like no movement. Is it equal to walking? I don't know. That would be up to a doctor. So I'm not a doctor. I'm not trying to tell you what to do. It looks to me like treadling, at the very least, is a normal exercise when you have high blood pressure. I'm going to include the walking information here with my blood pressure test for the treadle, and I'll tell you why. This is the smaller cart. This is the one, well, they're both set up for Scout to pull, but I've got the smaller one set up to work with him again on pulling this. I had fixed his service dog vest, his harnesses. And while I'm here, this is a kid's playpen. This particular one I have had since my son was a baby, so for a long, long time, and it opens like that, and I'm using it for like a fence in the backyard now to keep cats and dogs and elephants away from Scout when I'm working with them. And I bought another one that you can see in the picture above the pool, that's actually longer. It's a little bit bigger, and my neighbors there got a dog who's little. She's kind of little, and Scout gets excited when he sees her. So those fencing things serve several purposes, and they fold up, easy to carry. It's wonderful. But anyway, I'm including the walking, not to make a long, boring video, and I'm not going to keep talking the whole time I'm walking. This is the smaller cart, as I said, and I can use this as like a stroller thing to hold on to with two hands, as well as the big one, and just use it as a walking cart. The whole thing about treadling and lowering your blood pressure, and this is why I feel making a video like this is worth it. The same as I did when I was trying to set a pedometer up on the treadle. The more you know about your own health, and the more you know what's going to work and what's not going to work, the better. So if I hadn't looked into this with an odometer on the treadle and blood pressure monitor and everything, I would have had my old mindset that I know treadling is beneficial, and I would just go with that. Okay, so I was walking, and wouldn't you know, the battery on the camera gave out. And what I was saying is that I would have gone with my previous mindset that knowing that treadling is positive. If I hadn't suddenly found out I have high blood pressure and along with the PAD. So let's go ahead. This is after a walk. And see what it comes up with. So the more I know about this, if this is close to 171, which it was after I was treadling, then I'm 168. So the exercise you do with a treadle is probably fairly equal to walking. And with PAD, which is the main thing here, what I need to do is keep the blood flow going to my feet. I need to build new blood vessels in my legs and for my feet. Treadling does that because you're using your feet. So now this is up to 168 over 81. I'm going to write that one down too. So that's only 3 points off from treadling, walking. So I think treadling can be a valid, I can include this in my overall exercise plan, and it's valid for keeping my legs moving. I have to do more tests with blood pressure, and this video has been invaluable really to me, because I would have said, oh, I'm just sitting down moving my feet, my blood pressure wouldn't go up. So the moral of the story is, if you have one of these, take your blood pressure a little bit more often than they tell you to. Right now I only have to take it once a day, but see what your body's doing. And I'm not a doctor, and I'm sorry the camera is jiggling, it's the phone camera. I'm not a doctor. You have to follow any program that your doctor tells you to do. But I absolutely feel that I can keep treadling in an exercise program, and at the very least, it's not really raising my blood pressure any more than walking does. And at the same time, overall, long term, maybe it'll help lower it. You can look more into isometric exercise, which is, I believe it's exercise without moving. Well, gee, what are we talking about? We're talking about treadling. One exercise I just looked at, you lean up against a wall and you move your feet out 1.5 feet and then move them back in again. So they mean exercise without your whole body moving. That might even put treadling in isometric category. And they said that lowers blood pressure. So I made this video thinking I had already known, oh, I always pick out the right things to do. I must be lowering my blood pressure. So that's not really true. I needed to learn this. I needed to figure out exactly how my different exercises are affecting both PAD and high blood pressure.